attentions, the blocks of sodomy, the haven of retention where daddy's gotta be. I show up in his mentions, that means I gotta be important to him somehow. You're gonna see. This goes out to you. Yo, you promised her a future, massacre the past. Waiting on the staircase, prowlers often pass. Clogging up a share space, soliloquy of glass. Crushed up in the red state, nobody ever asked. Now she's in a weird place where demons often bask. Offered her a spark, instead she took a flask. Laced it with some sparkle, merchant off her ass. To garner some attention, the manner didn't last. Refused to give you credit, don't blame it on your past. Your father's not a doctor, but he was always fast. To pick up on the issue, to toss a little cash. You never had to work, your temperament was crass. Flies, kicks on the bleachers, puffing past the riot seekers. Thinking one day you'll be rich, how the world has come to greet you. Yeah, reality's a bitch, not the product of your teachers. Now you're claiming that you stitch a vocation as a preacher. Says the word, this is it, and your sins are not legit. You can finally meet your kid, you could teach her how to live. Well, the Roger's not a kid, it's a skeleton of horrors throwing sparkles at your lid till you bleed out on the corner where she waited for her father who would never be forgiven. What is this place? Yo, it's the pavement of attentions, the blocks of sodomy, the haven of retention where daddy's gotta be. I show up in his mentions, that means I gotta be important to him somehow. You're gonna see is the pavement of intentions, the blocks of sodomy, the havens of retention where daddy's gotta be. I show up in his mentions, that means I gotta be important to him somehow. You're gonna see. This goes out to you. Yo, you promised her a past, but massacred her future. Was never close to God, but the goer doesn't suit ya. To mold her is his job, says the man in violation. He touched her as a girl, now he's claiming no vocation. Let's look into a world, Monty never said a word. Forced her into dresses, seen but never heard. Begging God to come and save her, but the cross is not a savior. Is the thing he used for leverage when it's time to come and claim her. She escapes into the dark, rescue falls apart. Ladies from the parish saw her in the park. No one listens to the screen, it goes well into her teens, so she has to play along as her voice is like a dream. Singing to the high, makes them feel it in the spine. When she slips into the wine, it generates a scribe. Seen a horror as the aura of the omen starts to blurry. You wanna meet your God? I'll take you in a hurry. Say goodbye to all the lies, the flirting with your eyes, the hand upon my thighs, the world that I despise. I am me, I am free to escape into a vision where my father's not a monster and my normal is forgiven. Yeah, what is this world?
Testing, 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 testing. Yeah. Happy Friday, happy midnight, everyone. All right, can I? Hello, everyone. This is Noonie. Welcome to Noonie TV. Yeah. For most of us, it's either midnight or we can say, hey, happy Friday morning, which is trial night tonight. Yes. Awesome. Always having some fun. Probably will be in VHOF. So basically, welcome. Hope everyone enjoys. Pretty much, my name is Noonie or Noonie74, as you can see. What we'll be talking about today? Let's see. Ding, ding, ding. Well, today we will be talking about meta builds or just builds in general. I was, as a content creator, I am new to it, so I'm step by step. But I was thinking of talking about some stuff, some subjects, and as I come by, I did see a good video review that I thought was awesome. It just hit the spot. So pretty much I was like, all right, you know what? If I'm going to make a review, this review is just perfect. I can just piggyback from it and we can talk about it and see what everybody thinks about this. So let's go straight to it. Hope everybody's having a good morning or midnight, what you can do. Drink a little cafecito if you know what I mean. All right, let's do this. Yeah. All right. So the truth about ESO builds. This is so controversial. There's so many talks. There's so many things about it. So we're gonna get straight to it, and I'll piggyback as we go along. Yeah.
wanted to go over a couple of things to share some context with people over builds and ESO. This should help people, I hope, feel comfortable with creating builds on their own to have fun in the game. Everybody hears the term meta and meta builds, and you.
All right, so this is a great chart. By the way, I did get permission from Duma to be able to preview his and give it a nice review. Thank you so much. For you who don't know, he's also a great content creator. His name is Duma. Feel free to subscribe or like his videos. They're just awesome, and I thank you. I appreciate it, man. Mad props to you. Pretty much, as you can see in the chart, best meta builds. You see a little triangle thing right here, which is pretty awesome. He mentioned about the best meta builds, anything works, and the objective mad builds. So he's going to talk a little bit about it, and I'll probably just talk a little bit more about it. Let's look.
You gotta have meta and the meta this and the meta that and meta and blah 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 blah. Meta is basically best practices. It's what has been sniffed out, figured out, tested out, everything thrown against the wall, and the final things that stuck that are the best options. It's the best synergies between sets, typically. It's superior in math and stats. The most efficient uses of diminishing returns. And when it comes to meta, it's usually like a very narrow lane of the best practices, the best gear, the best option, the best math, the best everything. Meta is the best standards and practices. It's the proven things to have the highest level of performance. Now, you don't have to be in that lane for ESO. ESO is a completely different animal. It's not like WoW, where in WoW, you complete the highest level raid, strap on that gear, the highest eye level, and you're ready to go. ESO is way more horizontal in that regard. So other than this tiny, tiny little narrow lane of meta and what's best, you have a huge area of anything works. Let me zoom in a little.
Now, this is something that I have mentioned several times to guildmates, several times to people. People even get upset with me all the time, especially as a guildmaster. Oh my goodness. Can I say about the meta? It's good and it's bad. And Doom is going to explain a little bit about it better. But if you could see the little triangle right there, that little tiny triangle, it's because in my past videos, I did mention it, and I'll probably mention it again. This is an estimation. It could be a little bit higher, a little bit less, but 75% of players in Elder Scrolls Online are casual gamers, which means they'll probably never ever want to reach meta level, or if they do, casual is best, or just to have fun. So very few people would ever reach that top level. Even people who do veteran content probably would never reach that level too, because some people are not crazy about practicing hours and hours of parse build. With that being said, let's continue the video and we'll piggyback on it.
A little bit on this for those that are on mobile. Anything works. And what I mean by anything works is usually if you have a decent understanding of the basic necessities, such as like the major and minor buffs that you need, and spammables and light attacks, or how heavy attacks work if you're heavy attacking, then anything in this area can typically work, because there's so many sets that are comparable to each other. And there's so many abilities that are comparable to each other. Now, if you take a build that fits in this middle area of anything works, and you start shaving off aspects of the build and trying to make it better and better and better in terms of damage done, all you're going to do is slowly whittle away everything in this area until you end up on meta. Well, let's say you have a heavy attack build that doesn't have like the 2 heavy attack most damage builds, right? And someone gets a hold of it. They'll get rid of that one set and tack on the other set that does more damage. Let's say you're using a monster set that may have a fun effect that you want to have, and someone gets a hold of it. They're going to shave off that fun effect and they're going to put on the meta set. And you can keep shaving and shaving and shaving and shaving and whittling and whittling and whittling down, and everything in this area is going to end up here if you try to compare it to what's meta. What is
So pretty much break it down for you is meta, and you see the triangle in the middle, which is probably the biggest triangle, the whole triangle there. Um, it's mix and match. And I will say this, I give props to every content creator in the game. They put a lot of work, they put a lot of effort. You know, a lot of them will put parses of super high parses because they want people to learn, they want people to get better, you know, and a lot of people are interested in meta. Meta is heavy and we get it. However, what people don't understand is that you don't need to just get meta. There are other sets that work as well. And like Duma said, you can mix and match them. Are there pros and cons to everything? Yes. For example, heavy builds. Am I the craziest person in heavy builds? Probably not. Why? I have my several factors. Probably I'll mention in the next video. But do heavy attack builds work? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, you know, you can, with heavy attacks, you can hit a lot of high damage. However, what happens? They become one-dimensional, which means is you set up a build, you set up a heavy attack build, you get a build online. It works great, but what happens? There might be the survival factors. You may not be able to survive well on a heavy attack. I'm just giving examples. I'm not saying you won't. Other factors as well is what happens is with a heavy attack build is once you change a couple skills around, it's very hard to fix it. Because the more optimal damage is still light attack and weaving. Many people hate to hear this, but it's the truth. However, like Duma said, if you're not trying to be meta and being a top, you don't have to worry too much about this. There's one bar builds, there's Oaken Soul builds, and there's heavy attack builds. I spent a lot of hours experimenting with stuff, and I can tell you, I even mix middle builds with overland sets, with craftables, and nowadays you can do pretty much anything and make damage. It's just about fluency and practice.
Is the highest damage. That is not necessary in ESO at all. Not even a little bit for like 95-98% of content that this game has to offer. If you're not going for Godslayer, if you're not going for trifectas and trials, you don't need this meta setup here. There's the reasons. There are tons of comparable sets. Tons of sets where the difference may be negligible or very tiny or an apples to oranges type situation because you're comparing like a stat increase to a proc. There's so many options with sets,
and this is the part that drives me nuts, insane. You won't be even believe how many players come into our guild and it's the same routine over and over again. They ask me, hey Noonie, I want to get my damage higher, or we send them to a mentor to help them out. And what tends to happen all the time, and I think Doom is going to explain this later on, which is just awesome explanation that he does. Pretty much, they go in, I give them either a recommendation, because I spend hours and hours experimenting with stuff, so I give them a recommendation or even craftables or overlances that are easy for them to even buy in the guild traders, right? And I tell them, start working on your parse. Start doing this, start doing that. And you know what they do? 2 weeks pass by, I be like, hey, how you doing, man? How's the parts going? Or how's their damage? Or how's your build? And we give them, I mean, we spend hours, you know, where they literally don't even have to research anything. We just give them the tools. And he's like, oh yeah, I didn't get to parse because I spent 2 weeks doing this trial to get this meta build in the newest trial out there. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, okay. So then this is the fun part. I'm like, all right, well, good luck. So come back to me when you're ready. Another week passed by. Yes, Noonie, I got all the sets. Cool. All right, are you going to work on your parts? Yeah. And then they get flustered and they get frustrated and get upset because they go with that the meta build and they're hitting really bad. I mean, like really bad damage. And they're like, I don't understand, you know. And then they put on a set that I recommend them, and they might do even like 1 or 2K higher. And they say, how is this possible? I'm like, because the thing is, it doesn't matter what sets you have on. If you don't practice on your DPS, you're not gonna get better. And instead of spending all those hours farming it, you could have been using the sets I recommended you. Then once you use them, you know, hey, you get better in your parts. So now you practice. So now when the time comes that you want to put on those meta sets, you're going to see the improvements. But people don't like to listen. And but either way, there's pros and cons to being casual. There's pros and cons to being meta. You know, I'm gonna talk a little bit about everything.
In the anything works area. 2, there has been a damage creep over time that has trivialized most solo content. And when I say trivialized, I mean that compared to how it.
Yes, yes, indeed. He's gonna mention it, but I'll mention it again. And I mentioned to so many people, and they get upset. Many people don't know this, and this is a fun factor. I remember one time we were gonna do it with our trial team, Sunspire, and we had some players who've been in the beginning of the game who used to play, you know, when damage was so much lower. There was less nerfs. Where you go into a trial and it was so hard, even a dungeon like Fungal Grotto, because we're talking about way back, because damage was not as high. But nowadays, I mean, even nowadays with people who lack mechanics or skill, vice versa, damage in the last couple patches have been so high, you know, that's why even I laugh when people worry about the nerfs. Damage is in an all-time high, where you go into something like Sanctum of Ophidia, and Sanctum of Ophidia feels like a joke. No offense. I mean, for experienced players, let me rephrase that. Why? Because damage is so high, you can just overburn stuff. Now, there's some things, content you can overburn, but that's just a perfect example where there's really no need to worry about so much damage. Of course, you should practice. With a little practice, you will get better.
Used to be 30 to 40.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, so the Sunspire thing. So I remember we were going to go in there, we were game planning with our officers. We were going to be like, all right, you know, we had a new team. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So what is the plan for Sunspire? One person told me, officer at the time, Nooney, we're not ready. And I'm like, what do you mean we're not ready? I mean, we done everything. We done Cloud Rest, you know, which is hard mechanics at the time. You know, we done this, we done that. What are you talking about? They're like, oh, we're not damage ready. I'm like, are you sure? We burned through almost everything. And they were like, oh. And so I was like, all right, what was the last time you did Sunspire? 6 years ago. 6 years ago, bro, buddy. At that time, you know, I remember it was like the maximum damage at the time was like 60 or 50. I could be wrong. Could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. It's just a different ballgame. People did not have the damage we have now. Now, that doesn't mean the players weren't skillful back in the days, but it's just, it was a different era, you know, and this is a problem. People don't like to update. They just listen to what everybody else tell them without finding out the facts.
40k DPS was big damage. Now, today, on one bar, you can hold down one button and heavy attack your way to double that damage to 100,000 DPS on some of these heavy attack builds. Yeah, you have a couple abilities to press along the way, but 90% of your time is holding down heavy attack. So the game has changed massively, but the content hasn't changed to reflect those changes. So there's been an enormous damage creep over time that has a direct reflection to overland and delves and public dungeons and arenas and anything you want to do solo content wise. I know like update 35 like completely dumped on the whole trial scene and blah blah blah. That's a whole nother conversation. I'm not talking about that. That's valid. And
yeah, I know he's talking about, oh my goodness, everyone was just going crazy saying, hey, this was nerf. Hey, this was nerf. I remember, and it might have been that patch. I think it was the Templars where they were like, I remember they were trashing one of our guildmates saying, oh, it's trash or oh. And I was just shaking my head because me and our guildmate, which is actually another guild leader of ours, we tested stuff out and his damage was perfectly fine. If anything, maybe even higher. And then we had another, he wasn't in our guild, but he was a friend from another person that I know, where he was a Templar. And he was hitting 125, and people were just trashing because he was like, nope, it's still good. I'm hitting 125. Yeah, they nerfed the skill. I forgot the skill, what it was. Was it Jabby Jabby, I believe it was? But, I mean, it doesn't matter whether they nerf it. Like, if you perfect your class, it won't not matter at all, especially in PvE. PvP is a different ballgame, different animal. We can talk about that later on.
And that's a different element. So what does that mean is you don't gotta be big D damage meta parsing best build in the game to participate in any of this. You don't. Like, it's so overkill. It's the same as like buying a Lambo to drop your kids off at school. You don't gotta be LeBron to play JV basketball in middle school. It's literally the same thing. It's not.
And he makes a very good point about this, and it drives me nuts because for example, our guild, we do trials every Friday. It's our team is good enough to do all vet trials. Are we hard mode? Not there yet, but all vet trials we can do a few. I'm very honest. I'm very realistic about how it is. I used to be in past progression guilds where we used to do hardcore stuff, but now that we have our own group, I like them. They're a good group of guys, and I think we're gonna get better together. Well, let me rephrase that. Not being biased. Female and male, are in our guild. Awesome people. I remember I had a little brain freeze. Oh yes. So some of our guild recruits, and we give people chances. I mean, it's vet content. So like Duma once mentioned, there's builds where you press a button and you get high damage, like 100k. So all we ask the minimum in our guild is 75k. And sometimes you get people who be like, oh, that's too much. Oh, that's impossible. And I'm like, listen, if you just listen, and we experiment with stuff for so many hours. If you just give it a try, you can do it. And I guarantee you, most people who do it, who have been successful, have listened to us. Yeah, at first they get a little nervous. They listen to us, and within a fast bit of time, with the knowledge we give them, they go, they hit. They're like, oh, Noonie, I hit 75k, but I think I'm gonna do more. So the minimum I asked them is 75k, and most of them over surpassed it. So what happens? They'd be like, Noonie, I'm not satisfied, or whoever the guild leader or mentor is at the time, we're not satisfied. I think we can do more. Well, if you want to do more, that's excellent. That's awesome. You can do it. That'll be your, personal, goal. But all we ask for is 75k. That's all. And they're successful and they do very well. Of course, there's other obstacles to be good, such as mechanical awareness, experience. But that, little by little, we give them chances. Then we have the other group of people who they'll just lie to us. They'll be like, hey, yeah, I did the parse. How many times you did the parse in the last week? Once. Really? So that means you tapped it once? Or they'll be like, they just won't listen, or they say, oh, parsing's not for everybody, or parsing's not important. Well, we're doing vet trials, and I'm not even forced. Yeah, 75 is the minimum because you can do way more, like super fast. So we just get a minimum. But if they don't do 75, we'll still let them in long as they're trying. They just got to do little by little, and shows improvement a little bit. We're not gonna trash them or be toxic, but people are either just lazy or they just have this illusion that they just, and like anything, you don't have to be with us. You can be with other trial guilds. You could be with other guilds who have maybe less requirements or casual. But if you want to be a casual player, it's fine. Just there's other places for that. We're I'm not gonna say we're hardcore, but we are vet trial team, core team. And people don't understand that. They get very emotional and blah blah blah. Anyway, I could just be ranting on and on and on.
Not necessary. It's not needed. We're also in a state of doing more damage and having more impact with lesser actions.
Yep.
The APM of what's required, which is actions per minute in ESO, to clear content effectively, primarily on the solo front, has been like, look at heavy attack builds. Like this, it's not the same element anymore. Outside of the 0.01% content like Godslayer, there is enormous freedom because our damage is so much higher than the content now when it comes to overland and arenas and solo content. Because we're so much higher, you have enormous freedom to pick and choose kind of anything you want. So this have to follow the meta to enjoy the game is a complete falsity that doesn't exist. And this is the reason why that's happened. I'm gonna share something with you. I'm gonna share it. It's a 1-minute video. This is what's happened in ESO in the past 4 years.
I love this.
This is if you are newer, meaning you just came in the last 12, 24 months, something like that. This is what you're experiencing if you've been gate kept on things. I'm gonna share a short video with you here.
Scientists placed 4 monkeys in a room with a stepladder upon which there was a bunch of bananas. Whenever a monkey went to climb the ladder, the other monkeys in the room were sprayed with cold water. After a while, each time a monkey went for the bananas, the others would attack it to prevent it from doing so. The monkeys learnt to never climb the ladder. But then, one of the monkeys was removed, and a new monkey wearing a raincoat was introduced. Naturally, this monkey went for the bananas, and it was customarily attacked and prevented from doing so by the others.
Notion has been the centerpiece of my workflow. It's quite literally an
Oh
extension
man, we can't get
of
away
my
from
brain.
commercials.
I can take notes, create.
This new monkey learnt not to climb the ladder. So when another monkey was substituted in and made for the bananas, all the others attacked it, including the one in the raincoat, despite the fact that it had never been sprayed with cold water. A third monkey was substituted in, and then a fourth final monkey. And still, whenever a monkey tried to climb the ladder, the others would prevent it from doing so, even though none of them had ever been sprayed with the cold water. When asked why this was, one monkey said, "That's just the way it is."
Boom, right there. But that is a large portion of the in-game groups in ESO today in 2023. They don't even know that just a few years ago, people were clearing the same content easily with 17, 18k HP, and they're requiring 25k.
I will piggyback on that, by the way. I love the video. It's just awesome because it's just I want to be nice about it, but it is ignorant from a lot of people. They don't know better. It happens. You know, you're learning the game. You know, everybody wants to be the top damage. I get it. You know, there's a lot of ego stroke. But I will say this, and this might offend a lot of people, but if I was to tell you that the best players in the game don't hit 100K, well, let me rephrase a better example. If I was to tell you that the best players in the world, an Elder Scroll, probably hit 75K, but don't hit 125K, or maybe even 105K or 100K, would you be surprised, or would you be like, Noonie, hell no? Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. You have to kind of think about it this way. Damage is at its all-time high. If you hit 75K, especially with light attack and weaving, heavy attack's a little different story, but light attack and weaving, you have at least some fluency, well more than enough damage to do almost every vet content in the game. Now, there are exceptions. If you're going to do like no death 12-man hard modes, absolutely you're going to need more because you don't want to be there as long as possible because it's hardcore. You know, you're doing a no death. The longer you're in there, the more trial for error. And I know me personally, most people, you know, after you're there in a trial for more than 2 hours, people get burnt out. They start making more and more errors. It's been proven from time to time. The monkey thing, it's just awesome because that's really what it is. People just don't know and they get upset. You know, they get really upset when you tell them that because they just listen to the meta. And this is a perfect example of it.
They have no idea that just a couple of years ago, people were clearing the same unchanged content.
History is important, man. You need to know about the game. You need to know. You need to do your experiments. You need to do your research. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people who are casual. There are people who work 24/7. They're like, Noonie, I can't go and experiment or do a parse for 5 or 6 hours. And I get it. That's why we give you the tools. That's why we give you, you know, I get it. So they go and look in a build and, you know, an easy build or a heavy attack, and it makes them work. Nothing wrong with that.
With 30, 40k DPS, yet they require 90, 100, 110, 120 to be on their veteran trial team. They have no idea why. That's just the way it is. So what you have, going back to the things I
agree. And that's why what we do is we do 75k minimum. But keep in mind, it's just a workaround. You know, like I said, if people put the effort, and they're a little lower, hey, little by little. And the reason why we ask for that is because it's just fluency. You know, you're doing vet content. You're not doing casual. You know, you're doing vet content, and we'll even train you. We have mentors who will help you. And if it takes you several weeks for you to do it, it's fine, long as you're showing the effort. But some people, they just want it easy. They just want it. They don't want to put in the effort. And we're not talking about 5 hours. You know, we're talking about you do it for like less than an hour a day, and you're pretty much will get it. Because we're giving you all the tools. We're giving you all the information. You don't even have to research it. It's like literally we're giving you a silver platter.
I said is you have uninformed people gatekeeping this meta area who don't have a clue of what is actually a healthy baseline of where they should be or where their people should be to clear content. They have these outrageous expectations, and they're still not doing well because they haven't got a decent foundation under their feet of how to play the freaking game.
Yeah, that is so true. I remember back in the days, I wanted to get into a core guild or a guild, and I remember all they thought about was damage at the time, and they wanted me to parse. And I remember before I even joined a guild, I mean, I was very into mechanical awareness, where mechs were so important for me more than damage. As a DPS, I knew damage was important, but I wanted to be mechanically savvy. So once I got into this trial guild, and I believe I was hitting like 65 at a time, they wanted, I believe, higher DPS. But I remember we used to go in there, and you have people who hit, really high, and they would just keep dying, and I would just keep surviving and reviving people. So of course people will question, like, hey, he has the lowest damage. They would question what sets I would wear. They some of them even thought I had heavy set pieces on, or not even DPS sets. But no, I had to prove myself. I did a parse. I hit my 65K at the time. Now I hit so much. I'm in the hundreds now, but back then, 65. I showed them the sets, no heavy, no nothing. And they were pretty surprised, because it really is just practicing your craft, knowing your class. But people don't want to put the work and effort. But either way, I do agree with Doom what he says. People just don't know better, and this is a perfect example of it.
That's just how it is. And that's not the reality of the game that we're all playing. Okay, moving on. Also, ESO has a lot of smoke and mirrors, just like every MMO. I just posted a screenshot in Discord yesterday. Duma Wifey and I just 100%ed God of War Ragnarok. It was a pretty cool achievement. It was a lot of fun. We had a blast. There were a couple of fights that were really challenging at the end, like really challenging. They really press you if you leave like the difficulty turned up a little bit. And in one of them, you're fighting like two bosses at the same time, and one of them you're fighting 3 bosses at the same time, and you're just like, holy shit, there's 2, like you're just getting beat from all sides, and you can't like breathe because everything's just going on.
Let me piggyback what he means by that too. Hopefully, because this has happened to me a lot. And perfect example, and I'm gonna give it because this is the fun. Many people probably think this one's an easy one, but this is a perfect example. Banished Cells 2. Oh, I got memories with it. I got good times and bad times. Back in the days, it was a little bit harder because we had less damage. Nowadays, it's cake. However, to this day, if I wanted for fun pug it, one of the biggest problems is people, because they don't know mechs, they get scared. You'll be surprised, even the most experienced players, how we'll go into a dungeon like Banished Cells 2, and they get creamed. And with the last boss with all the Daedrix. And the reason why is because, 1, they don't follow mechs. The most easy is mechs. And 2, because so many things and animations and stuff on the floor and the ground happens, they get scared. Like, they just get frightening. They get scared and they start doing crazy things when I'm literally telling them exactly what to do. I know in Banished Cells 2, I tell them, all right, 1 DPS, keep track of the heals. The little bubbles, don't let the boss get healed, and we'll just keep applying damage. The tank, get the Daedrix, keep them in place. The bubble, when you get bubble in the air, go to the positive, go to the negative. I'm going really quick about this. I'm sure I'm missing a couple mechs. And they just get scared by the animations, and it's really not a hard dungeon. You can burn it pretty quickly, and you don't even need much damage. But people get scared by animations. And this is a perfect example of that. This is why learning the game's important. Following directions.
And like Duma Wifey was like freaking out. Like how we play those type of games is she does all the exploration and like completionist stuff. We do puzzles together, and I do all the hard fights. So we have a pretty good balance when we play games together. And this is what I do. This has been my requirement to her. I require her to try every fight 2 times before I do it. I know it's dumb. I'm not like bossing her. Obviously, if she put her foot down, I wouldn't make her. But I say, before you give me the sticks, you have to try twice. And that has made her like infinitely better in the long run. Even the hardest bosses, she has to try twice before I touch the controller. So she was in this fight, and there was 3 bosses at one time, and she was just freaking out. And me watching, I was like, oh my God, that's the hardest shit I've ever seen in my life. That looks insane. How would you ever beat this? And then she gave me the controller, and I approach it a little differently. I usually concede that the first time is going to be a death, and I just kind of like feel out what's going on and look around and sniff out the mechanics. And I realized, wait a minute, this is smoke and mirrors. There's
Oh, and here's another thing too. Here's another story as well. Vaz is another perfect example. Not so much vet, but when you do hard mode, that's another perfect example of how people get scared of animations. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's also experience and mechs. And here's another reason why I only give a minimum of fluency of 75k parse requirement, because I really think experience and mechs are really important. So this has happened to us a lot of times. You get someone like someone who hits 100k, and this never fails. Like, let's say we're shorthanded, we'll go to another guild or someone who's supposedly experienced and really good, and you'll bring them into like vast hard mode, and they just keep dying and dying and dying and wiping because yeah, they got good damage, but they just do the damage in the wrong time, or they don't hit their ultis, or they don't survive. They just keep dying and wiping because they don't know the mechs, and they just keep going on the red rug and AoEs. Or another thing too is some of them don't even wear self heals. Now don't get me wrong, I understand your DPS, it's your preference, however you want, but make sure you're surviving. We'll also get people with heavy attack builds, and I have nothing bad about heavy attack builds, but if you're like anything you're wearing, if you're dying or not doing the damage, of course in a vet trial is a different story. We are going to question you, because you keep dying like 10 or 20 times. And people do get upset, but we do get positive criticism. We're not trying to trash anybody, anything like that. But this does happen, so you do need to learn. You do need to get your mechs, what's more important, mechs or damage? I mean, they're both important depending on the situation.
3 bosses, but there's only one attacking you at a time. The other 2 is just visual noise stressing you out and making you like, and making it all like tense and extra hard, but it's artificial. It's not real. And that exists in every MMO and RPG that we play. That same smoke and mirrors type thing where you're in a fight and it's crazy. I have so many people who've heard me on stream in the past. Calm down. Just stop, slow down, absorb your environment, and really absorb what's going on. And usually when you slow down and back up a little bit, you'll realize, hey, this isn't nearly as busy as I thought it was. So with all that together, you can use just about everything in the game as long as it makes sense and as long as you have the basic necessities, major buffs, minor buffs, spam bulls, light attacks, all the basic core components of DPSing. Anything, literally anything works. We can trim it down and trim it down and trim it down until we get it meta if you want to, or you can create a fun build with a fun playstyle to clear content and be just fine. Ask yourself, what is better in that area? To me, it's personal preference. If you're clearing content, you're having fun, and you're not holding others back, people forget about number 3. I'll say it again. If you're clearing content, you're having fun, and you're not holding people back, who cares?
That is very true. And I agree to that. I do agree to that. I remember one former guildmate from another guild who's now in another guild. I remember one of the biggest conversations we had was he's like, well, Noonie, I don't want to parse. I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to. There are casual guilds. There are guilds who will take you, and you can do trials. There's no problem with that. And they're like, oh, but because I don't parse, I'm still the best. I'm good. And I'm like, I understand that, but the thing is, you need to have some type of requirement, and we're doing vet dungeon and we don't want to hold people back, and it's not just even damage. It's also someone dying like 20 times. I mean, we're not going to kick you out because you died 20 times, but we want to help you. We could even do content practice with you, but people don't want to put in the effort.
Who cares? Have fun. Play the game. Play what build you want. You don't have to be in this area unless you're going after that slim slice of the content here. Now, people will say you should always be the best version of yourself, and you should always have the best gear and the best food, and practice DPSing on dummies until you perfected it and be the best. Well, you know what? Newsflash to everyone who thinks that, which I thought that for years pre-ESO. The majority of people don't play that way. Like, you got to get over yourself and realize most people playing the game don't play that way. Now, if you're in this area and you want to work your way up into this area, and you want to work your way up into this 0.01% content of the Godslayers and blah, 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 well, you got to drop this mentality and join them up here, because they're doing something different than you. They're doing something that's proven to be better than what you're doing. They're not playing a build because they have the most fun with that build. They're playing that build because it's the most effective build for their role. So you sacrifice fun for effect if you want to fill these roles.
I agree. Like right now with our trial guild, we're in the pace at the moment where I love my Nightblade. You know, I hit the highest damage with my Nightblade. Really high damage. You know, because a lot of core guilds, they're really picky now. Like, you could be hitting 125, you could be hitting 110, 115, 105, but it doesn't matter if they're very picky. They're looking for a specific build, a specific choice. And I get it. I understand, because, you know, they're trying to clear content as fast as they can. So, you know, my hardest hitter is a Nightblade. But lately, you know, to keep myself also motivated, what I try to do as well is I look at what's the benefit of the team. So if the team needs something, you know, I might have to sacrifice and go to that class and perfect it. However, you know, I've been fortunate where a lot of times, you know, our even though I'm the guild leader, a lot of times our raid runners, you know, they find people or know someone or recommend, hey, you know, do you think you could be support? Hey, do you think you can do that? And most of our team are nice people. You know, they're willing to help with team, you know, great teammates. So I appreciate that, you know, and it makes all our lives easier. But hey, have classes ready. I have like my Necro, I have my other classes ready just in case, you know. But this is a perfect example, you know. And same thing, you know, if you want to do harder content. Another problem too is this: if you're gonna say you're the best player in the game, which I'm not saying I am, you know, I could say I'm a decent player, but if you're gonna say you're the best or you're good in Elder Scroll, then you have to back it up. But if you can honestly say, you know, hey, I play for fun, I do this, I do that, then fine, you know. And that's the problem with people. People have huge egos. Everybody wants to hit the hardest hitters. That doesn't make you the best player. But unfortunately, you know, it's a stereotype. It is what it is. Doesn't really matter to me. You know, I have fun regardless, PvE, PvP wise, you know, because, you know, I've been so long in the game. You know.
If you don't want to fill these roles, who cares? Have fun. Enjoy the game. Have fun. But if you want to join them in what they're doing, then you need to play ball. You don't want to join a group of people who are using a tried and proven effect to be doing more damage, and you do less damage because you want to have fun. That's not how that works. If you want to be in this lane, have fun with the game. If you want to join the people here doing this 0.01% content, then you need to join them. You need to practice your parsing. You need to get better at what you're doing. You need to be better at understanding the mechanics of the game. You need to be better at understanding your class and what to do. And that's how you get there. If you don't care about that, which is the majority of people, there are more people here
about
by
75%
far
plus
than there are here. Like by miles. By miles. If you don't care about that, who cares? Stop letting people pressure you to telling you you need to do this. Now, like I said before, there is content for the in-game players that are exceptionally difficult, that require that
hard
level
modes,
of min-maxing,
no
that
deaths.
0.01% of content. And if you want to join it, then you got to play ball. I think I beat that to.
Yes, you did. I did want to mention something, because for people who, some, like I said, 75 to plus people are casual, so they don't really understand this. When you're doing a 12 mat, it's different. If I go to Fungal Grotto, and Fungal Grotto is easy, but maybe for a casual not, and I say, hey guys, let's do a hard mode. I'm just making an example here. It's not going to be that hard because there's only 4 of us. we're gonna get it in a matter of time. But causing 12 players to do a no death on a trial, you know, with the exception of maybe some Craig Lawrence, it's really difficult. Someone's gonna die. Someone's gonna mess up. It's really difficult, especially when you get into the harder DLC trials. With that being said, the longer you're in there, the more room for error there is. That's why they ask for so much damage. That's why they ask for, they have so much expectations and they nitpick, and it's understandable. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times, vet trial guilds or trial guilds. If you're casual and you want to try a hard mode, why not? You want to try no that, why not? You have a team, and you had a group that they want to try. Hey, there's people who have done it. But when you're trying to look for when you're into a serious core guild, you have to understand that there's expectations, and if that's not something you don't want, then don't be there. There's nothing wrong with that. Have fun.
To death. I think everybody understands. Moving on. Last section. Objectively bad builds. It's not about singling out a single person. It's singling out how the game has changed of the people that are left, right? So what happened in update 35, which a lot of those people have came back, but it kind of nuked the in-game community. So many people left. And I'm saying in-game content stuff. In-game stuff. Like the sweaty stuff. That group dried up because update 35 was like a pretty negative experience for all that. Now we're kind of on the mend and people are coming back, but a lot of those people left, and with those people left the knowledge base. That's a very important component that gets overlooked. It's the same thing as like humanity, right? Whatever age we're in right now, right? If we have nuclear war and we get nuked back to the Stone Age, we're starting over. We're going back decades and decades and decades and rebuilding. That's what's going on right now on ESO. So when you see builds on YouTube and like different things and people posting content, you're like, I don't know, like that something's off about it. Like that doesn't seem that great. It's a good chance it's probably not, because they're not immersed in a group of people that are sharing that knowledge base that used to exist. I think Nephis said it best. We got nuked to the Stone Age, I think was his exact word.
Yeah, it is very true. In my case, because we're experimenting every time there's a different nerf or patch, we're always experimenting, especially on the parts with different sets. I mean, we try everything, and we do spend a lot of hours. And I will say this, that some patches things change for us, some patches not. Then again, you also got to depend what class you have. Like if you're using a Nightblade, if you're using a Sorc, everything might work a little different. For example, on a Nightblade, here's an overland set that I think is really good, and people underrate, and that is War Maiden. War Maiden is a very good set for a mag blade, because it does magic damage. Most people be like, magic damage, but all mag does magic damage. No. What you gotta understand is that there are certain niche or certain sets that work well for certain classes. For example, if you look at a Dragon Knight, something like what's that set from it starts with a B. Oh my gosh, I forgot what it's called. Well, anyway, it has fire damage. It comes from City Ash. It has fire damage. So DKs have a lot of skills that are fire damaging. So it enhances the fire damage of those skills. For a Magblade has magic damage. A lot of it's magic damage, including the Soul Tether, vice versa. So it enhances those skills. However, keep in mind, because a lot of them are flat damage sets, so you don't want to like 4-piece it. You always want to 5-piece it. That's why I always prefer to keep it in the body. But yeah, there are sets like that, and that many people don't know about, but they do work, and vice versa.
Words and knowledge base and end game community. We're rebuilding now, like better and builds are coming out now, and there's always like a percentage of the people who are left pumping out good builds, but you see a lot of this right now and they just don't know better. And this is absolutely where I started, like my early era on my YouTube channel, like so many trash builds.
Oh yeah. How many people every day they're like, I would like to enter they'll be like, Noonie, or they'll be like, Bob or someone in our guild, we would like to enter your trial guild. And I'll interview them, because I want to. I don't want toxic people in our group, I don't mean people who are like disrespectful, that type of stuff. So I do interview them. Some of them get a little bit like, hey, why you got to interview me? You know, I just want to get into your guild. But I do, because I want to make sure I have nice people, you know, respectful people. And a lot of times you'll be like, hey, I want to be a DPS / healer / tank. And I'm like, this is not Skyrim. This is Elder Scroll Online, and we're doing vet trials. If you want to do it casual, that's cool. But I say it in the most respectful, nice way. But they'll put on like a set like, and I believe Duma put it down as a perfect example, Beekeeper or Plague Doctor. Those sets are tank sets. They're just gonna give you a ton of health, and like for example, Plague Doctor, it's a heavy set. So heavy sets, if you notice from a few, they give no damage, not even the passives or anything. So you're just there's putting that on a DPS, like your damage is gonna be really bad, like a wet noodle. With the exception of maybe Yokida's, which is aka Berserkers from Hellra, where that actually is a really good set. But here's the catch: it does damage, but you can't put it on the body because it's heavy. You're just gonna lose out on damage. So that's a set that it is a damage set, but you have to put it on weapons and jewelry. Many people don't know that, especially casuals. So that is a perfect example, and we all done it. I remember back in the days, I wanted to be DPS, but I felt my team was always dying and squishy, so I decided to put extra heals, and I did it for the benefit of the team. And I remember I didn't know better. I kind of got upset at a young guy. He was like 16 years old at the time, and he was telling me, he was like, no, you can't do this. And I got really upset. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, I do it for the benefit of my team. You know, so we all been there, we all done that, but we learn, you know. Of course, I apologized to him once I realized, but it took me a while. I was kind of bitter.
Builds. So I don't blame them for starting, but just know when you see these things, that's largely part of the reason. They're either new or they're not immersed with a knowledge base. They're not in a community that can say, hey, that's bad, you should be doing this, or hey, that's a bad idea because this is better. They're just kind of floundering and figuring it out circa, I don't know, 2016 ESO. So that's why you see a lot of this. So objectively bad builds. What is an objectively bad build? Poor set choices. Like I just pulled something out of thin air. Beekeeper on a PvE DPS build. That would be like totally silly. Lack of staple buffs. Someone going into combat without like major brutality or sorcery or any of the major buffs you're supposed to have. Breaking 2 or 5 sets to add other sets, weakening the output. Now, yeah, there's a lot of builds that break 2 and 5 sets, but they make sense. Redundancies, buffs overlapping, poor performance, clearly lesser ideal choices for the sake of creativity. And that's something we're seeing a lot right now. Clearly lesser ideal choices for the sake of creativity. You see that right now all over the place on YouTube and various websites where someone will post a build that does really, really good, and someone will change one little thing of it for the sake of originality so they can post it, making it slightly weaker. Experiment. Have fun. Try different things out. Take your build that you just made and go into VMA. Go into Veteran Vatishran. Go into a dungeon. If you're doing decent DPS and you're clearing content, dude, that's an all-star build. Good job. You did good. I'm proud of you. If you want to be up here with the big boys and gals doing the big parses and you want like you want to post that big money screenshot, then you're going to have to sacrifice this mindset a little bit. If you do care, then get better at the game. Take some time to learn some things. Practice your parsing so you can get up here. If you just want to make a build for fun, dude, who cares? I do this all the time on live. All the time I'm running around with 1-bar builds and Brawler or Carve. And
Exactly. And that's the same thing with 1-bar builds, heavy attack builds. All that stuff is fun. Arena builds are, especially solo arena builds, are perfect examples where you can test stuff out because you have no healer, you have no tank, it's just you. So you can play a little bit unorthodox there. But either way, regardless, you gotta learn, you gotta get experience, you gotta master your class. That's another problem too, where I see people where like they'll have like 20 classes. And I get it, it's fun, but master that class. But like Duma said, if you're just doing it for fun, then it's cool. It's all good.
Clearing things just to get shit done. I don't care. Who cares? It's content's being cleared. I'm having fun. I'm not holding people back. That's my full circle understanding of builds in ESO and the reality of where we are today.
By the way, give props to Duma. Very great build. I mean, very great video. So I'm definitely gonna get him his credentials, his like. When you get a chance, take a look at his stuff. It's really good stuff. Yes. So I just wanted to piggyback up on some stuff. Good, excellent. I could even make it even better. So with that being said, there are a few questions and comments that people did put in my comments and videos. So I did want to kind of answer them. One of them was, "Hey Noonie, you had a 75k Sork easy build, but I was able to do 90k with it, with the same exact thing. That's awesome. I'm not gonna mention names, but that is actually awesome. And pretty much what I want to piggyback on that is that understand that a lot of the builds I make, I'll probably get more in detail in it. But for example, I do have a video of a easy 75k Sork build. And keep in mind, I do kind of handicap myself with this because sometimes I put jewelry that's blue, or I won't have the I'll mention about the traits, but I do sometimes put blue jewelry, or I'll even slow myself down. I'm pretty fluent on parse, so I might slow myself down on the parse. And the purpose of me doing this is to prove that, hey, this is an easy build. If I'm not even doing my best and I'm able to do it, then anyone can. And that's why I do that to myself. So I gave myself an easy 75k Sork parse build. So this guy was able to hit 90 who commented on him. By the way, good stuff. Very good stuff. With the same build that I put with the weapons and jewelry. And I believe there is no trial gear, there's no mythic gear in this Sork build. You can look at it in my channel, Noonie TV. It's a 75k build, and it's easy. It's literally just pure either craftables or overland sets that even if you're not in a group or team, you can easily farm and get. And take a look at it when you get a chance. The next one was, I believe it was, oh yes, I believe it was on the Sork as well. One person did commented, it was a negative comment, pretty much said, hey, you can probably, they were like suggestion, hey, you can, for an easy build, it's just better off you get kill runs and pillars of Nirn, and you could hit a whole bunch of numbers while you got to use these sets, and you can do so much better. And I think what he point to not to realize is that the purpose of the easy build was for anyone. Someone who's casual can go and get these sets easily, even buy them in the guild traders. You're not gonna send a casual, even on normal, to go get pillars or Nirn or Kinross. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they have a group and they can do it, cool. But that's the purpose of it. Easy build. Now, if you're a little bit more experienced or you can get those sets, cool. You could probably pump up your damage a little bit more. But the whole purpose was like, I wanted to do a build that almost anyone can do, even in your sleep, and get better. Because like I said, like even Duma said, Duma even said it, you can probably do most damage with, what was it, 30, 40, 50k? We got to go back to the video and look. So if I'm asking for a minimum 75k, and Duma even says there are builds with one button, and I believe they're heavy attack that you can hit 100 plus. So if I'm giving you an easy build for 75k build, that's pretty awesome. That's way more than enough to do most content, unless you're gonna go for a 12-man no def. And this is something that people, they take it a little bit too literal. Kinross and Nirns, great sets, absolutely. But we're talking about easy build here. Telling someone, hey, this is an easy build, go do Kinross and Nirns, just does not make any sense at the moment. If you got the experience, you got the group, sure, right, go ahead and do it on normal. But I'm talking about easy build on the spot. Things that you can get on the spot. You can go to a guild trader, you can farm it out in overland. That's what I mean by easy build. I just want to clarify that, just in case. Any more other questions? Let's see. Duma's build, I thought it was excellent. I was actually gonna make a video about the meta things, but I think he hit everything on the spot. I like the frogs. The frogs are awesome because the frogs remind me of so many players where I'm literally telling them and they just look, but this is meta, but this is this, but this is that. And keep in mind, guys, I don't hate meta. I like it, but like Duma mentioned, if you're gonna be a casual, you're a casual, which most people are. But if you're gonna be serious and go into heavy trials, well, you have to put in the work and effort. Do I think everyone can parse? I'll be very honest with you. Out of several people who done parse in our guild or even tried out, I can say that most people, even the people who say they can't do it, the most of the people who say they can't do it is because they don't even put the effort. I'll be very honest. Out of many of them, there's maybe one person out of many, I'll say out of 100, that I can literally say didn't hit the number, but literally he had a huge disadvantage, and I could say all right, but he eventually got it already. But most people who can't do it is because they don't put the effort or even try. And I'm not saying I'm talking about the 75K or even lower. 100K, do I think everyone's gonna hit 100K? Probably not. Is it possible? Yes, everybody can do it, but you got to put much more effort to it. With that being said, I think I nagged or said blah 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 more than enough. I hope you enjoyed Noonie TV. We will be doing more content, vice versa. Don't forget to give the man Duma the props because his video was awesome. Make sure you get a like or subscribe. And when you get a chance, also subscribe to my channel too, Noonie TV. Don't forget to do that because I can continue to do more and more content. And I hope everyone enjoy and have a wonderful night. Yeah.